Hello, my name is Jim Royal. Thank you for watching my YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Today I'm going to be reviewing a classic solo Beatle album. This one comes from Paul McCartney and Wings. It is their first album called Wildlife. It was released in 1971 in November of that year. And I'm going to try to zoom in on it where you can see it. Sometimes the lighting is not always good. Let me get that. Anyway, there's Paul McCartney there in the water playing the guitar. You have Denny Swell, who is the drummer on the left side. He was actually, he recorded with them on the Ram album, played drums, session drummer in New York. They liked his work so much they decided to ask him to become a member for Wings, and he said yes. You have Linda right there. She's backing vocals. She does a lot of lead or co-lead vocals with Paul on this album, and she also played keyboards and piano. I think she might have taken lessons as a girl, but Paul definitely helped her, before recording this album. And then you have Ex Moody Blues right there, all the way to the right, and that's Denny Laine. And I think when this album came out, Wings Wildlife, the wording wasn't there. It was just a picture of the band. Denny was a former member of the Moody Blues and was known for the song Go Now. Rhythm guitar, very versatile as a player. Later a writing partner with Paul. Guitar, he could play a little bass, keyboards, he could even do drums, backing vocals, and he did some lead too. This album was a top 10 hit for Wings. And before I tell you about it, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this. Wings, how they got their name was pretty interesting. Linda was having a difficult pregnancy, delivering one of their children, and there was talk at the time, there was, the expression, it'll take wings, of angels to help them. Well, it ended up that everything was okay with Linda and her child. The pregnancy was fine, the baby was fine. So Paul liked the word Wings, and he says, I'm going to use it for my band, and that's what he did. This album was recorded at Abbey Road. What they did is they tried to have an approach similar to Dylan in the sense, Bob Dylan, in the sense that they wanted to record the album very quickly. In fact, it was recorded in about a week and a half, which I found pretty amazing. Many of the songs were just one or two takes, and that's it. Some of them were jams that the engineer captured. In fact, the first song, Mumbo, was one of those songs. It was interesting. He sings, Paul says at the beginning, "Take it, Tony!" And that's motioning for Tony Clark, their engineer, one of their engineers, to make sure you got the balance, make sure you're recording this. So that's how this album started out. I've always liked Mumbo, but it's very forgetful. There's really not too much to it. It's a feel-good song, though, and I think that it probably, in that sense, would be a good reason to start the album with it. Next song is called Bip Bop. Bip Bop is a real throwaway tune. I tell you, it's probably one of the worst in Paul's canon. Just doesn't do much for me. It is very catchy, though. It's very long. It goes along the lines of something like Bip Bop, Bip Bop, Bip, Bip Bop, Bip Bop, Bip. And then he says, bet your bottom dollar, frying in the pan. And then you have Linda doing, yeah, 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 bip, bop. And it's like, oh my gosh. It should have been a song that maybe they played, but not released. Next song is called Love is Strange. Love is Strange was a cover song originally done by Mickey and Sylvia in 1957. Was a hit for them. Later, the Everly Brothers covered it. And Paul and the Beatles were huge Everly Brothers fans. Linda was a big reggae fan, liked reggae music a lot, and got Paul McCartney more into it. They were working on an instrumental for this album, which was kind of interesting. They liked it. Real polished song. It's in fact one of the more polished songs on the album. And they decided to put the lyrics of Love is Strange over it, and had a different arrangement. In fact, they liked it so much it was going to be the single from this album, the 45. The B-side was going to be a song called I Am Your Singer. Decided to scratch that idea just because sales for this were really low. All right, next song on this, which would be concluding the first half of the album, is called Wildlife. Wildlife is the title cut to this album. Very rough sounding, very similar in nature, kind of to like John Lennon's Cold Turkey, if you've heard that one. Not exactly, but just really rough, really like search the soul kind of thing, you know. And I remember when I was a boy listening to this album, I used to kind of, you know, pretend I was with the band, and I'd have the little guitar going and singing along, lip syncing, you know, to this. This is one of those songs that is for an animal protest song, you know, fighting for, you know, the love of animals and just what man does, you know. And as some of the lines say, you know, man's at the top and animal too, and man, you know, you just gotta care, wildlife. I always kind of, looking at that now, I'm like, oh, come on, really, Paul? You know, and he says the animals in the zoo. He had an experience with, you know, his family. He went to one of the zoos where, you know, all of the animals were out, you know, in the area you drive, and, you know, the animals were out in the park, that kind of thing. So he saw this sign that said, animals have the right of way. So he got inspired to write a song about that. I've always liked it. It's one of my favorite on the album. It's always a fun song. It's a little over 6.5 minute song, 6.5 minutes, but it does work. The next song on this album is called Some People Never Know. It would start the next side. Now, I'm going to tell you, there are a couple. There is Mumbo Link on here, instrumental, and Bip Bop Link, instrumental. I'm not going to review those because those are just, you know, just quick instrumental fragments, either to just something they were coming up with. I don't really count them as anything. They're just kind of, you're surprised by them more than anything. All right, Some People Never Know, I found out, was a song that was around since the summer of 1969. So it's very possible that it could have, you know, gone on Abbey Road, been attempted on there. I'm not sure, but it definitely was a dig at the other Beatles. You know, the title itself says, Some People Never Know. I like it. It's just a little too long. It's a little over, I think it's like 6 minutes long, and you're thinking, man, when's this song going to end? It just keeps going and going. There's a lot of Linda on here singing co-lead with Paul. Also, she's singing a lot of lead with Paul on Love is Strange, co-lead. And it works very well with Love is Strange, okay? She's in her top form, as well as Linda can be. I think, in my opinion, she does a lot better in the background. She does very well with the backing vocals, or did with Paul and Denny Lane. On this, though, she's singing with Paul, and, you know, it's okay. It's not a bad song, though. It's okay. The next song is called I Am Your Singer. Another one of those songs where they're both singing co-lead, Paul and Linda. In fact, Paul, when he got the acetate for this is one of those demonstration discs that an artist will get usually before they're going to release an album, just to listen to it, see how it sounds. Alan Parsons, the other engineer, who later went on to Alan Parsons' fame with the Alan Parsons Project, did a mix on this, and Paul liked it so much, the first mix, that they decided to use that for this album, and they did. I Am Your Singer, I like the song. It's you know, not too long. Fortunately, it's under 3 minutes. It works. A lot of Linda on here. You know, it's okay. It's okay. What I'm noticing on this second side is a lot of these songs are just blending together. You know, the next song is called Tomorrow. I think it's a song that works better than the other two. And it might be Paul's answer to Yesterday. I'm not sure, but it does, the lyrics describe someone who is not having to face sorrow anymore. They're happier. And I think it really describes Paul's life, what he was going through. He found Linda, he had this family, and he was living a good time. He was living on the farm with his family and just enjoying life. Next song is called Dear Friend. This was a song that was actually recorded during the Ram sessions, the prior album. Very polished song also. That and Love is Strange are the most polished songs on this. Dear Friend, I have heard different interpretations. One thing I've heard is that this song was originally a song about John Lennon dealing with reconciliation. There was a lot of negative press in those days. They were both slinging each other you know, in the mud, you know, at each other. They were writing songs. You know, they were having it, duking it out, you know, in the press, and it was just like, wow, come on, guys. And I think this was Paul's attempt partly to say, come on, dear friend, you know, we're still friends. Let's not act this way. Now, that's one version I've heard, and I believe that to also be true, but there's Barry Miles wrote a book, a Paul's friend, who said that this was about Linda's first husband, and the idea that Paul is writing a letter to him, so to speak, saying, how could you let this wonderful woman get away from you? I'll kind of think it's more about John Lennon, but I'll let you decide, the listener, if you listen to it. Anyway, that closes the album. There is some bonus tracks on the CD. You have Old Woman Oh Why, which was a B-side. It works. I like it. It's fun. A little rough, but I like it. Mary Had a Little Lamb, which was a silly single, if I'm not mistaken, in 1972. It's okay, but it's nice to hear it. And then you have Little Woman Love, which was a song that was recorded during the Ram sessions, but it was a B-side also. Now, if I'm going to review and rate this album and give it 1 out of 10, 10 being the best, I'd have to give it a 4. I'm not saying that the album is horrible, but I am saying it's one of his weaker efforts. I'm saying it's an album that works better when you listen to the songs individually. I like them much more that way, but you know, trying to listen to the album all the way through and everything, it drags to me. And I remember when I got it as a boy, I got the cassette, I would do a lot of fast forwarding. I would flip over, I would listen to, you know, Wildlife on one side, then flip it over, listen to Dear Friend. I always liked Love is Strange. There's really about 5 songs that I really think are good songs here. The other songs, in my opinion, are throwaways. It's not some of his best work, but they were just finding themselves as a band. And I think the other thing I wanted to comment is, you know, you expect more, at least I do, of someone like Paul McCartney's caliber, where he was in, you know, one of the best rock groups in the world. They were known for their production techniques. Paul was learning how to produce other artists, and he was producing himself too. In fact, this was his 3rd, you know, solo album, so to speak. And it just, you know, like, what happened? You know, what happened, Paul? You know, but I get it. I understand what he was trying to do with this. He was trying to do a kind of a homegrown, organic sound, and I think it played off. I think some of the recording sound on this isn't as good either, and I'd have to fault that for that. But that's how I rate it. Definitely appreciate your comments at the bottom, and I do want to thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Take care.